Hi folks. One of my most popular videos, one that went almost semi-viral shall we say, is called The Truth About Satan That You Won't Hear in Church. And it's a video where I talk about the origins of the word Satan, what it means, how it was used in the Old Testament, how it was used in the New Testament. My ultimate conclusion is that Satan is not real and can't be real. So this is a companion video to this one where we're going to talk about Lucifer. Who is Lucifer? Well, Lucifer is mentioned only once in the Old Testament. Depending really on which Bible you read, because if you read in, say, the New American Standard Version or the New International Version, which are two Bibles that I have in front of me here at the moment, you won't find the word Lucifer. You will find the word morning star. And there's a reason for that. Lucifer is a Latin term. Now, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew and Aramaic, the New Testament in Greek, but it was all translated into Latin by a Christian guy in the early centuries of Christianity called Jerome. And this translation in Latin was called the Vulgate, and it contains the word Lucifer in this verse. I think it says Lucifer qui mani oribaris. I'm kind of showing off here. I don't really know a lot of Latin, but I did look this one up, which literally translates into morning star that used to rise early. So what do we mean by this? The first thing you got to notice about this passage is that the word Lucifer, a literal rendering of Lucifer is light bearer, and it is a reference to the morning star, the literal morning star, and that is the planet Venus. Okay? It's the star that is still there in the morning when the sun rises because it's bright. It's the last star to disappear in the sky. So Lucifer is Venus, also known as the morning star. So when the Bible was originally put into Latin, this was not a very, it was not a direct reference to Lucifer with a capital L as the devil. It wasn't. That was an interpretation that was put on that later. And certainly, I'm not really saying anything controversial here. Modern Bible scholars would agree, and that's why the word is now removed and changed to morning star. And what I want to do now is I want to read the passage Isaiah 14 in its original context and point out how this literally cannot be a reference to Satan, and it's really not that complicated. So I'm going to pick the New International Version. I could also pick the New American Standard equally that I have in front of me, but we'll go with the New International Version. Actually, before we do that, let's read from the New King James Version, which is pretty much like the King James Version without the Old English. We'll read the verse that I'm talking about that says Lucifer. It does something crafty actually, because Isaiah 14, verse 3 begins with a subheading that says Fall of the King of Babylon. And then from verse 12 onward, it has the subheading, The Fall of Lucifer. Now those subheadings, you got to remember, they're just there to split up the text into logical divisions. They're not really in the original text. And I would argue that there really shouldn't be a division here. But we'll come to that. So verse 12 begins, How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations. Okay, so that's how it's done in the King James and in the New King James. So let's read it in the New International Version, and we're going to begin back at verse 3, not at 12, because it's important to get the full context. Okay. On the day the Lord gives you relief from suffering and turmoil and cruel bondage, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. Now remember, what you're about to read is a taunt against who? The king of Babylon. And thus begins a whole big section put into, poetic verse. How the oppressor has come to an end. How his fury has ended. Who? The king of Babylon, right? The Lord has broken the rod of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers, which in anger struck down peoples with unceasing blows, and in fury subdued the nations with relentless aggression. All the lands are at rest and at peace. They break into singing. Even the pine trees and the cedars of Lebanon exult over you and say, now that you have been laid low, no woodsman comes to cut us down. Who? Who's been laid low? The king of Babylon, right? And it continues. The grave below us is all astir to meet you at your coming. It rouses the spirits of the departed to greet you, all those who were leaders in the world. It makes them rise from their thrones, all those who were kings over the nations. They will all respond. They will say to you, you have become weak as we are. You have become like us. So it's a taunt against the king of Babylon because he's dead and gone, like them. All your pomp has been brought down to the grave, along with the noise of your harps. Maggots are spread out beneath you, and worms cover you. And it goes on. How you have fallen from heaven. It goes directly on from this. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth. You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. All right. So it's comparing, metaphorically, the king of Babylon to Venus, to the morning star. So it's not about a literal being cast down from heaven. It's imagining the morning star falling out of heaven, or the heavens, the sky, falling from heaven to earth. You get it? It's a metaphor. It's poetry. The king of Babylon is like this, like the star fallen from heaven, glory gone. Okay? And if this was a reference to Satan, to Lucifer, to Satan, it says, you have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. When did Satan once lay low the nations? It was the king of Babylon who did this. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of the sacred mountain. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to the grave, to the depths of the pit. So you know the old story we've all been told about how Satan was proud and he wanted to make himself greater than God? That comes from this verse, which is not, it's not about Satan, it's about the king of Babylon, as is made completely clear from the very beginning of the passage in verse 3. I mean, you know, you are brought down to the grave, to the depths of the pit. How does that relate to Satan? It doesn't. You know, I can understand you think it's Satan because, you know, it says, I will ascend to the tops of the clouds, I will make myself like the Most High. You know, but still, that is the activity of a king. You know, he becomes so proud of his achievements, he wants to be greater than God himself. So at some point in the distant past, you know, church leaders got it into their head that we're going to, this term, this Latin term, Lucifer, light bearer, this is a reference to Satan. And it stuck. And it has stuck to this very day. But it has only stuck among the more flimsy interpretations of Christianity. You know, what I'm saying here is not against Christianity, for a change. It's just against a really stupid interpretation of Scripture. Most Christians, I think, the intelligent ones, would realize it's not a reference to Satan. Okay? So, that pretty much wraps up Lucifer. I don't know how you can argue against this. You can try. But it seems to me that the people who say, it's not actually, okay, his name's not Satan, but his name's Lucifer. Got you there. It seems to me that they really haven't thought much about this and really don't know that much about their Bible. And personally to me, it's disappointing to me that a translation like the New King James, which, you know, is very, very modern. When was it translated? 1982, 1979. Yeah. You know, it's modern. They should have known better than to translate that as Lucifer. just like the other translations do know better. And this, people who live by the King James Bible alone, as if it just fell out of heaven and it was this perfect Bible, and all other translations are wrong because the King James is perfect. That is just stupid. I'm sorry. Well, which was the Bible then before the King James was around? Because there were some Bibles before that. There was the Tyndale Bible, but the King James was the one that became popular. And before there was English, there was Jerome's Vulgate. And before that, there was a Greek translation of the Old Testament that was called the Septuagint. And then there were the original Hebrew and Aramaic scriptures. And when ancient manuscripts are translated, there are inaccuracies. It happens. And there are also wrong interpretations made. So there you go, folks. The truth about Lucifer. Just like Satan, he's not real. He is, in fact, the king of Babylon, who is dead and gone long ago. So don't be scared, folks. There's nothing to be scared of.